Hello, second graders, and welcome to EL Lesson 44. 4 10s, 4 1s. Think about it. We have done 2 EL lessons a week. Wow, since we started. So if we have done 44 lessons, divide that in half. It looks like we've been in school somewhere around 22 weeks. This is amazing. So great job, second graders. Our learning target today, I can identify temporal words in the text, The Massara Dig, the story of Dr. Holly Woodward Ballard. Now, we're going to define what this word temporal words mean right now, because it's not a word that we hear all the time. So let's define it. Temporal words are words that are related to time. And we're going to start using these kinds of words in our writing. So let's take a look right now and see if we can do our learning target. Identify words. They might look like this. Immediately, then, at first, afterwards, suddenly, before long, next, later, finally, and last. These are all examples of temporal words. As we read the text right now, please look for these words in the text. Be a detective. Here we go. The search for the tiniest bones. And remember, she's more interested in the tiny bones than the big bones because she was interested in learning how they grew up. The Branvold Quarry is about 64 meters. A crew that had been there before us, had already removed about 15 feet of rock. This exposed the fossil layer. At first, we needed to remove the sediment on top so we could get to more of the bones. We used shovels and pickaxes to scrape off the sediment, and then we loaded the dirt and rock into a wheelbarrow and removed it from the site. Sometimes the rock was so hard we even had to use a jackhammer. Now, are there any words in there that are related to time? I saw at first, I saw before. Those words are related to time. Let's see if I see any more. At first, before, sometimes. Yes. All right, so I think sometimes might be a temporal word. It talks about times. How often? Sometimes. So what did Holly and her crew need to do at first? Let's go back and look. What did they have to do first? Oh, here it says, and that talks about time. At first talks about time. We needed to remove the sediment on top so we could get to more of the bones. Oh, they just reminded me, at first is a temporal word or phrase. At first. When? At first. What did they need to do? They needed to remove the sediment on top to get to more of the bones underneath, because as we know, fossils are buried. So here's the answer. At first, this is the first thing they had to do. We needed to remove the sediment on top so we could get to more of the bones. And here's all the examples of temporal words. And what is at first? It's before anything else. That's what that means. And we're going to start using these kinds of phrases immediately, then, first, suddenly, last in our writing. That's what we're going to do today. So let's get to our assignment. Our learning target for our writing is I can use temporal words to show the order of events that a paleontologist might experience. Let's talk about the things that Dr. Holly was doing. Using these kinds of temporal words. Next, last, then, finally, at first, afterwards, immediately, later, and suddenly. So your assignment is to pretend maybe that you're a paleontologist. What are the steps that you would do using some of these temporal words? Let me write out a sentence frame for you. Okay? let's just start with the word first. First, I blank. Let's pretend we're the paleontologist today. Let's pretend we're the paleontologist. Charlie wants to be a paleontologist. First I'm going to use another one. Then and finally we're going to pretend we're a paleontologist today using temporal words. Describe. First, I drove up to the site. Then I got out my tools. Finally, I began to dig. Whatever you want to use. Okay, you can use any of these temporal words. Immediately, last, suddenly. But this is a word frame, and you can fill in any of those words right here, and then just tell me what you would do. Okay, 3 of them. First, actually has to come first. This is a good order right here. Charlie doesn't like the order, but this is a good order. First describes what I did very first, then, and finally. See the steps of progression that we can start using in our writing? All right, second graders, I cannot wait to see what you come up with using these word frames. You could also use the word last here or later. Immediately could go here. So you can kind of play around with the words, but just make sure you have a first, second, and a last thing that happens. As a paleontologist, you are pretending. What do paleontologists do? All right, thank you for your attention as always, and I will see you next time.